Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley, and I am the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. What does it take to survive and ultimately thrive after horrible trauma? Today's guest, my friend, Dydine Umunyana, was a young child in 1994 during the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. She is a woman who has faced and dealt with severe trauma. Yet she found healthy ways to ultimately return to a place of love, trust, and safety. How did she do that? We will find out. Her book, Embracing Survival, is excellent and has been described as an important contribution to our understanding of trauma and healing after unbearable brutality and loss. Dydine speaks all over the world, sharing her story and describing how she has come out of the worst experiences imaginable and how she can now bring out the best in herself and in others. She is also the host of a podcast called Umoko that is available on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. So join Dydine and me as we have a candid conversation about life after genocide. Dydine Umunyana, welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
It's such an honor for me too. You know, I've met many people in this life, but I've rarely met people who I actually consider royalty. And I actually think of you as royalty. You, in my eyes, are truly, you're royal. And I just needed to say that ahead of time. I'll never forget the first night I met you. You came over with one of your closest friends and who's now become one of my close friends, the former neo-Nazi Arno Michaelis, who is on episode number 13 of this podcast. And the two of you were holding these gigantic pumpkins. And it was a sight to behold. It was around Halloween. And here was a man who belonged to a party that used to be a proponent of genocide. And here was you, a woman who had actually survived it, coming to our house to embrace the Sabbath in our tradition, lighting candles with family, singing songs in both Hebrew with some Arabic tones too. Really being, it was one of those moments that I will never forget, and my children still refer to as the finest Sabbath we have ever had.
Oh, that's the power of what humankind can be able to accomplish when we come together, you know, despite our background, despite of where we come from, or the religion, the color of our skin. It's just like, you know, it's a perfect example that it's impossible. It's for us to love each other. Yeah.
Such an important reminder. And what we're going to be talking in full circle, almost like Pulp Fiction, so to speak, in that we're going to be starting with that idea and then, of course, going into a whole bunch of other ideas and probably ending on that idea. But it's going to be a rocky road along the way because your story is so compelling. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever come across. It is all at once heartbreaking, horrifying, infuriating, terrifying, inspiring, and ultimately a profound testament to the power of the human spirit. I was wondering if you could tell my listeners about what happened in your memory from that night in 1994.
It was 1994. It was actually April, the night of April 6th. So I was born a few years before the 1994 genocide. And so in 1994, I was a child. I was a baby and I didn't really understand what was happening. But I know from, you know, when growing up, learning the history of my country, that's when I got to understand what really was happening. But the night of April 6, 1994, that's when our former president, who was a Hutu president, died. His plane crashed. He was coming from Arusha. It's an international court in Tanzania. And then his plane was crushed and he died that night. So because of what was happening, the atmosphere in the country, in Rwanda, before that incident, there was so much hatred towards the Tutsis. And the people had learned that hatred for decades. So when the Hutu president died, the entire country blamed the Tutsis that they have killed the president.
Right.
So on the radios everywhere, they called out for the Hutus to go out and exterminate the Tutsi race. So unfortunately, I'm from a Tutsi family, and I remember in the morning on this April 7th, because the genocide started in the capital city, Kigali, and I was in the Eastern Province. So the genocide started spreading from the capital city to all over the country. And it got to where I lived early in the morning of April 7th. So that's really where my whole life changed. And I remember my aunt, I lived with my grandparents and so many of my cousins. And as I mentioned, because of the way the planning and preparations of the genocide, the country used to kill or imprison Tutsis who seemed to fight back. So they wanted this genocide to succeed, and they started in the 90s to start killing people. So my parents were young; they were in their 20s, and they were in that demographic of young Tutsis who seem strong and they can fight back. So my dad fled when my mom was pregnant with my baby brother, and he joined the RPF in Uganda. And then a few months later, my mom fled as well, because after she gave birth to my brother. So they left us and my grandparents. Yes, go ahead.
And let's hit the pause button really quickly. We had a Hutu president, and for many months prior, it appeared that, if I understand correctly, a Hutu rebellious group had been preparing for many months, maybe even years. And that when the plane was shot down, it was thought that the Tutsis probably did it, but it could have easily have been the Hutus just to start things up. Is my understanding is that also, and so your father, who is a Tutsi,
mystery.
Right? It's a mystery. Nobody knows. And so your father left the country in order to train with the resistance.
Yes. Well, that was pretty much the only option the Tutsi people back then they had. They didn't have that many options to leave the country because they weren't allowed to have passports. There were a lot of roadblocks. So you had to show your ID and you weren't allowed to leave the country. So the only option they had was to flee and go to Uganda, because Uganda is a neighboring country. They fled to a lot of our neighboring countries. So that was pretty much
Burundi, Uganda, wherever they could go.
Yes. So with their survival against.
And so there you are with your aunt and uncle.
I was the only adult that was at the house, and my grandparents' house was my aunt. She was in her late 20s. Yes, Agnes. She was in her late 20s. We were so many cousins and my baby brother. So I remember waking up in the morning, because she woke everybody up in the morning. And she had everyone sit in the living room on the ground and just stay quiet. So I was one of the last kids that she woke. Because I was one of the young cousins there. So when she woke me up, I didn't get what was happening. The few memories I have from that morning was when she woke us early in the morning, my first thought was we're going to church, because that was like my favorite activity with her. She's still very religious person. She goes to church every Sunday or some evenings. But that was when I grew up, that was the activity we did together. And I cried. She got everyone ready, and I was like, no, I need to change. I want my beautiful dress. I had a beautiful white dress that my grandpa got me at Christmas before that year. And then she got so angry at me. She told me to be quiet, and if I want anything, should just whisper from then on. So I could feel, something's wrong, but I don't know what I did wrong. But she went and came back with my dress. She put it on and she gave me a jar of milk, and then we left the house. So she had older cousins holding hands with the younger cousins, because we're so many, and she had my baby brother on her back. She could hold hands with everyone, and she wanted to make sure she keeps all of us with her. So we get into the street, into the main road, where there was a lot of Tutsi people had been fleeing throughout the night. And where we lived at my grandparents' home, it was the main road that goes to Uganda. So most people used that road walking to Uganda. It's like 10-hour drive. But
10-hour drive.
Oh yeah,
people. So it's really far. So this is like on foot. This would take days
of walking, and a lot of people didn't make it. Of course, they were attacks everywhere, because in few days it was happening all over the country. So there was no like a city where you can hide or anything. So that's where really that was the first day of the genocide. We joined the people in the street. And then few blocks away from my grandparents' house, there were attacks from different angles. I have no idea where they came from, but they were singing, the songs of hate. They had whistles. They were, and all those songs, it's really, for me now as a grown-up, it's weird because those songs were in the name of God. So they were doing all the killings in the name of God. But when they got close to us, because we're in the midst of so many other people fleeing for their lives, everyone ran for their safety, and that's how I lost everyone that was with me. My aunt, my cousin. Her name is Mignon. She was like 7 years old, I believe. Back then, she was the one who was holding my hand, but she's a kid. She ran as well. And then I found myself in the home of perpetrators. So I guess they were my neighbors. So I guess as a young child, maybe that was the only familiar house that you could go to. I don't know what happened, but my memories that I had when I was after genocide was the memories lining up with people who were about to be killed. And it came to me as nightmares, because I couldn't put all the pieces together of what happened to me. I was by myself. Everyone else was killed then. So my mom had to take me back. My mom survived, where she was in the RPF as well. But she had to take me back to learn of what happened to me during the genocide, because she wasn't there. So that's pretty much how I learned a lot of what happened to me.
So you had a pace, and you were, I believe, about 4 years old at the time, and you were wearing, as you mentioned, a white dress, and so poetically, I believe you had a butterfly on that dress in the midst of all of this horror.
The few memories I had, I had memories of I loved that dress. I don't know, maybe I hold on to few memories of what happened then. I could remember the dress and the butterflies. I had 3 butterflies on my left chest. When the few things I could remember was the dress wasn't white anymore, because, during genocide, we're killing people with machetes and axes and stuff like that. So I could remember asking for milk and the fear I felt, and how they did allow me to drink the milk, but they first they were mimicking me and screaming that I'm a Tutsi child. If I wasn't a Tutsi child, I wouldn't be asking for milk. And then them allowing me to drink the milk, I didn't really drink it. I had those memories of my tongue holding the milk on the mouth of the little jar that I had.
Sure.
Just terrified. I didn't really drink it. But in the midst of that chaos, the perpetrators screaming and mimicking me, their grandfather and some of the perpetrators were his kids as well. He heard from inside the house, and then came out to check out what was going on and why they are not doing their job. And because during the genocide, killing was work. So if they took a break, if it was raining, and after rain they would go back. So it was an actual work. So he walks out, checking on them, and then he sees me in the line where few people before me were already killed, and then there were a few other people next to me. I was the only young person there. The young people were probably in the back. So their parents were holding them. I don't know, but he saw me and recognized me because he was like a third house from my grandparents' home. So we played with their kids in Rwanda. My grandparents' home. We didn't have fences, like.
Sure, no boundaries.
Yeah, there was no boundaries. You could play together because the kids would know each other. And then he recognized me, and I don't know if he pitied me or anything, but he stopped them. Yep. And he told them they should be ashamed of killing an innocent child when their wives are holding children not different from theirs. So he grabbed me and threw me, holding me between his pair of his legs. And then after then, I could remember a few things in there, but he threw me under a bed in the house, small bed. But under that bed, there were so many other kids hiding there. So he probably saved a lot of children. And so that was the first day of the genocide, but he couldn't keep me there because my parents were in RPF. And if you had parents in RPF, you're the worst enemy to the country. Sure. Didn't care how small I was, so he took me out of the bed at night and hid me in the field, the banana plantation field. But that was
and that was day one of with 99 more 100 to get 100 days to go in total.
It was 99 more days to go
for a 4-year-old who was on her own. And I know the story is obviously far longer and more developed than we can attend to now, but it's well chronicled as well as possible in your book, which my wife absolutely adored. And
I did my best.
yeah, you're a fantastic writer, and I imagine it was very, very important for you to write that and to try to find some meaning in the midst of the chaos and the aftermath in your mind of the dreams, the memories, and somehow finding a way to put it together in some. Was writing the book healing in some way? Yes,
it was. It was very therapeutic because I was able to tap into stories that I never thought they even affected me in anyhow. I had to do research, understand what happened. My mom was one of the people that I annoyed a lot with a lot of questions because I had to understand. And just writing every part of it was hard, but it was necessary. And now, few years later, I'm very grateful that I did, because I feel like it was a healing process that I didn't know that I needed.
Right. And somehow intuitively you went for it.
I went for it not knowing that it was going to do me good.
Exactly.
For me, when I did it was, I had started doing public speaking here and there, and people will ask me a lot of personal questions that I didn't feel comfortable, or I'm a shy, introverted person, and I didn't want to, but I was like, writing was my way of surviving when I was growing up, was my way of sharing. Instead of sharing to a person, I would just write it down. Maybe I should do it now, write it, and then give it to people instead of talking and sharing them my story. And then my journey with even sharing more began. I didn't know.
As you share this, I am thinking of one of my favorite definitions of trauma, and that is a shattering of something that you love and depend on, and picking up those pieces, gluing them back together, and creating something new out of that. And then I also think, of course, of Maya Angelou. I believe it was she who said, unless you know where you're from, you don't know where you're going. And it sounds like your intuition really was such a rich road for you to tap into, to create this work that must have taken hours and must have been very painful. But I love the way you said painful but necessary. And I'm going to pivot a bit and just go back to the idea that, of course, there were political factors in the atrocities of the Rwandan genocide. And I'm just wondering if we get a little more basic and leave politics out for a minute and just talk about the basic human factors. You were saying that Hutus would sing these songs of hate in the name of God. What did people need to believe, do you think, in order to carry out such atrocities?
I always like to share with my audience that it really is, such atrocities don't happen overnight. And it's not something you learn so quick. It's something that becomes almost like that hatred almost becomes like your second nature, because you don't know anything else outside of that hatred. And you might also think that's the only way of living because you haven't been exposed to a different life. And I believe the people that committed genocide in Rwanda, there were people who grew up in a society that was consumed by divisionism and categorization and hatred, that they didn't know any life outside of that. So when the politicians called out for meetings and hatred for one group, they didn't see that it was wrong because that's the only thing they've learned. That's what they learned home. Those are the conversations at school. Because before, I didn't experience that, but the older generation of survivors, even my mom, when they were in school, the teachers will have Tutsis students standing up and they kick them out of classrooms. Yes.
I'm sorry, my mouth is wide open. So this was, okay.
This was before the genocide.
Yeah.
So that was, the hatred began really from the colonials. And so that's when you remember in the beginning when you mentioned it's genetic.
Yes, and I took it back.
I know it's a historical thing because you will think it's a genetic thing, especially if people completely believe that we're that different. But before the colonials in 1930s, forgive me, this is like a little history.
No, please. That was you're answering one of my other questions. So let's go.
Yeah.
Colonials in 1930s, and I'm guessing these were German colonials.
Well, German, there were, I think, Belgians first.
Oh, right, Belgians first, right.
Yes, and then Germans, because Germans there were Germans, you're right. There were Germans first. And then the Germans realized there was no much in Rwanda. There was no minerals. There was no gold or diamonds. It was just a beautiful country, the thousand hills, but nothing more. They gave the country to the Belgians. But the actual hatred the Rwandans were taught was coming from Germans. And you know what was happening in 1930s, 1940s in Europe? It was Holocaust was going on. So when they came in Rwanda, the country was very organized. And They had a system that worked for the citizens. They had a king. The Tutsis were the like a first class, the elite class. It was a class system, and then we had
the Tutsis were at the top.
Yes, and the Tutsis were the middle class. And then
Tutsis.
the Twa,
who was that?
Hutus,
so got it. Tutsi, Hutu, and then Twa at the bottom.
At the bottom,
got
yes. But if you owned more than 10 cows, you could upgrade from the Hutu to becoming a Tutsi.
That's all it took. 10 cows, and suddenly
10 cows.
Suddenly you're different.
Then you're in a different class system.
Got it.
So it wasn't really about how you look or how tall you are, the darker your skin is, or whatever. It was just social class. It was really more of a social class, but everyone was just the same. So when the Germans came in, they couldn't understand how this African country has a whole system. You know, the Westerners haven't been here. How are they doing it? So they did a study of how the Tutsis looked like, and the Hutus and the Twa, and then they classified that as ethnics. So they will measure people's nose, how long the nose is, your hands, how long your hands are, or your height, everything. And then they will classify you as a Tutsi if you had longer features. And they will say, oh, you look like, you're closer to Europe. You're probably from Ethiopia or Somalia. And then they will categorize people that way. But from then on, you couldn't move from a Hutu to a Tutsi class. So, because that became your identity. And then the Germans gives the country to Belgians, because I think Belgians had Congo. So it was going to be easy to colonialize both countries because they're neighboring countries for Belgians. And, in Belgium, they have ethnics. They have, different languages. They have their system. So I always believe people give what they have. So pretty much the Europeans
they give what
gave
they
us
have.
What they had. Yeah.
And so they fabricated ethnicity.
Ethnicity they did, and it took 3 decades until people really took it as their own identity. In 1950s, the Belgians killed our king, and then they gave the power to the Hutus. But they've been teaching that the Tutsis are not from Rwanda, and they've had everything in this country. Why are they the leaders in Rwanda? They should go back to their home country. So that's pretty much where the conflict started. 1950s, 59, we had a civil war, and a lot of Tutsis fled to neighboring countries. And then 68, and then I think in the late 70s, that's when, or early 90s, that's when the RPF was born in Uganda. Out of the Tutsi children who grew up in exile, and they wanted to come home. And the Hutu government said, no, the country is full. If you try to come back in Rwanda, it would be like a glass of, that was one of the speech from the leaders. He said, the former president, he said that if Rwanda is like a glass full of water, and if you try to drop one drop of water, everything else in the glass will spread.
Sure, spill.
But it will spill. Sorry.
No problem. So,
yeah, he meant blood. So
blood will spill.
Yeah, we'll have to make space for you. That's yeah. So in 1990, when the RPF tried to come in, that was another civil war. The Hutu government went in homes and killed Tutsis. That's when I think 2 of my dad's brothers were killed. Then a lot of Tutsis were killed in 1990, and the RPF decided they stopped. that they were telling them that if you try to come in, we're going to kill your families that are in the country so we can make space for you. So the hatred was just built on for years and years.
And what's so crazy about this whole thing is it was an external group of people who were coming in and classifying with these fabricated ethnicities that were entirely bogus, and that the hate began to foment. It began to just grow nice and slowly. I don't mean to say nice in a good way, but it really slowly and powerfully, so that it was just deeply rooted. You've mentioned that Hutu men who were married to Tutsi women felt justified in killing their wives if they didn't comply with certain things relating to these so-called ethnic differences and or political reasons. And this was all built on a fundamental lie, really, in as much as so much of, frankly, all racism is. It
is. And I think they used the system, the colonials who went in Africa, they had a system called divide and conquer. So for the colonials to be able to succeed on the continent, where it was really more of dividing the people there so they can be able to control them and take the lands. So I think Africa is still suffering from the post-colonial. So that whole thing was one of the consequences of colonialism.
Sure. So you're describing, wow, just such a horrible sequence of an external group of people coming in, trying to wage power, trying to divide the people. And for generations, there has been trauma as a result of this.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to go back to your story. I'm going to zoom back into you. Dydine, when did you begin to feel safe again?
Safe, like sleep all night.
Yeah, so like you could sleep, that you, so you, as just by virtue of the answer that you're giving me, I'm gathering that perhaps you still don't in many ways feel safe. When did you begin to sleep through the night? When did you begin to not feel like you needed to look around with vigilance, wondering, am I going to be okay?
Oh, yeah. I've been here for 6 years now. And I think it took me a while to realize, wait a minute, I am sleeping all night. When I got here in 2014, the summer of 2014, that's when I realized I'm sleeping all night. I'm not jumping through the night. I'm not waking up nightmares or whatever. That's when it hit me that my reality of life has been completely different from what I was experiencing here in America. So I think it hasn't been a long time. And it's still, I feel like when you go through such a thing, it's something, it's your past, and it doesn't control everything I do, but I know that it's there.
So a similar question. You've seen human behavior at its worst. Yeah. And yet you're my friend. I know you well. You've even given me advice in various things.
No, you have given me the advice.
I guess we've both given each other advice. But back to that question, you have seen human behavior at its worst. And I'm wondering, how have you been able to restore your faith in human kindness?
I think, so for me, it's been a process and learning how to trust, being able to be grateful for just being alive. I think that was the first step that really helped me start seeing life in a different lens. And then people's kindness. Really, we have a lot of good people than we realize. The person who saved my life, just like thinking about the risks he took to save me, because being an ally during the genocide in Rwanda, it was also something that people got killed doing. So, like you mentioned, the husbands who kill their wives, they were doing it so they don't get killed.
Well, the Hutu husbands were doing it so
they won't get killed by the other Hutus.
The other Hutus, got it. Because it could be perceived as, right, because moderate Hutus were being killed by the extremists, even the moderate Hutu. Got it.
Yes. So, yeah, if you weren't in support of what they were doing, you were becoming an ally, and it was really dangerous to do then. So I believe the few Tutsis who survived, we weren't that many that survived. It was because of the few good souls of the Hutu moderates who saved us. So I think even in the midst of these hatreds and horrible things that are happening, there are also good people that are doing their best to bring positivity and change into people's hearts. So the more I focused on that side of life, it really, really also helped me in a way to be able to live and enjoy my life, the short life that we have.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you're wanting, and you're recognizing the preciousness of, what seems like perhaps a long life, but in fact, we're here really for a very short period of time. And a concept in psychology that I love is post-traumatic growth. And it's basically the idea, about it but I'm just sharing this with the listeners, that when you deal with trauma in a healthful manner, you can become stronger. I imagine, and by the way, just to contrast that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is not entirely true. What doesn't kill you could give you crippling PTSD, or you could begin to cope with the trauma with alcohol. But in your case, you found healthy coping strategies, even though at 13, you would, of course, like many people, you'd considered suicide because things seemed just so grim. And of course, one of the hallmarks of PTSD is the inability to imagine a future. Just the future seems so compromised. And yet, Dydine, you somehow got through the sadness and fear you experienced. I see it. I feel it. I'm sure you have moments of darkness even today. But for the most part, I really see you as a source of great light. And I'm wondering how you got through it.
I think I had great examples of strong people in my life. My mom was very strong. She raised 4 kids on her own. She sacrificed everything so we can have a better life. My father lost everything. His entire family was killed. And he couldn't see life after genocide. So you say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think for him was the opposite. He just couldn't see life. He couldn't see life as a Tutsi man after genocide.
Sure.
And I saw how much suffering he was going through. At first, as a child, at 13, I didn't see it as he was going through something. I saw it as he was putting us through something. That's what, for me, that was the way I saw it. And I was just tired. When you go through so much, you're
fatigued,
so just
overwhelmingly. It's just like,
you're
really
growing up. Yeah, you're growing up in a dysfunctional family. The both parents have lost everything. You can't really expect for them to give you the parental love, because also they are still dealing with the loss. And I guess that as a child, I didn't really understand it until later on in my life, that I started looking back and I see how much suffering my father had. And as I saw it as an example for me, if I don't take care of myself, I may end up like that. So he was pretty much, I would say he was a perfect example for me and my siblings to know not what path to try and not get to, and take unnecessary means. And that was the same case with my mom. She always made it clear to us that you have no option to get traumatized. I remember when I was like 16, I would go to school instead of telling me, I'm a teenager, she's supposed to say, don't be careful with the boys and whatever,
Totally.
that's the, and I was a boarding school.
The normal stuff.
And the normal stuff. And she would be like, do not dare get traumatized. I cannot lose you too.
Which is not what kids hear, but this was the echoes in her brain from trauma.
Reality.
So I use the word fatigued, and it was a bad word. I mean, you weren't fatigued. You were completely empty. There was nothing left, and you were looking to grown-ups to reflect hope and strength, and they also had nothing in their gas tank. Nothing in their gas.
So as harsh as that sounded in my ears when I was growing up, at my high school, all the other teenage kids, survivors, were always going through trauma. So much trauma, they would be hospitalized. And I think because of what my mom told me, I always felt the need of helping them. So when we had a kid going through trauma, my first instinct was to help them get out of it. So I really never got the time to get traumatized.
So you were a provider.
I didn't get that time, and it kind of saved me. And when I had my feelings, I knew that everyone else around me is going through a lot. So the only way for me to let it out was to, I became a church girl. So I would be in the choir, singing, and I would sing my pain out. So there was, I think, the circumstances also in my life kind of shaped me to become, the person I am now.
I love what you just said. You looked to your mom, who was, a symbol of strength. You helped other people and you sang away your pain. I think that's really, that's brilliant. I really do. It's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that finally the people of Rwanda who were once Tutsi or Hutu are now really just all Rwandans. And what I've understood also is that they've done it maybe the most incredible form of healing rituals, forgiveness. And I was wondering, what do you know about these rituals? What do you know about the forgiveness process? Can you describe how they've been able to accomplish this seemingly impossible human feat?
It's a complicated question.
Oof, I know, right?
Yes. Oh, now the doctor in you came out. So
he's always there. I tell this guy to please just take a break once in a while.
I don't think my country is completely healed. It's a journey that is going. Genocide for itself to happen, it took 3 decades. For people to get into that much hatred and get to the genocide. So for me, it's easy to learn hate and act on it. It's even harder to learn love and act on it. So if it took 3 decades for my people to learn hatred and act on it, it's going to take us longer. So it's been only 27 years now. So I see the progress. I like that we have the progress. We learned our real history. Like you said earlier, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you come from. I think that was the first step for us to learn our real history and figure out where we want to go and where we wanted to leave the country. And then I think the next step was we learned these ethnic things was not genetic. Let's try to unlearn it and see each other as Rwandans. So they started first in our ID cards. So in the ID cards, we don't have tribes anymore. We all Rwandans. If you're applying for a job, if you're going to school, they don't ask you what tribe or ethnic you are. How old are you? What's your name? That's it. How your brain functions. That's pretty much, yeah, what they look for. I think those were really beautiful steps for my country to take. And then it's not, it's the system, it's set up that way, but it's going to take a long time for generations for also people themselves in their hearts to clean up that mess that was made, like I can't forget what happened. My children won't have maybe as much trauma if I heal completely. My children won't have like trauma, but they will know the history. So it's a balance. I can't say that we did a miracle in Rwanda and we're completely healed. It's a journey.
Yeah, for sure. And in no way did I mean to imply that the healing has taken place at 100%. Just my understanding is that some very powerful exchanges have occurred that can at least begin the process. And that would probably have been a better way for me to have asked the question, that there have been rituals, there have been communications, and there's been a lot of female leadership, I guess, in the absence of men, because so many men died.
So many men died, or so many men killed, then imprisoned.
Sure. That's what I meant to say killed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's amazing how my brain actually, almost as a self-defense, it's almost hard for me to say the word killed. It's just so atrocious.
It is. It's a horrible word.
It's a horrible word, and that's exactly what it. And we got to give it the right name. They were killed. Dydine, I imagine there are a lot of misunderstandings of your story that you wish people would understand. And is there anything that comes to mind as I ask, what do you wish people understood that they might just not get?
I think I believe people change. They can change to be bad. They can also change to be good. And giving that space to one another to change, not push each other away. I feel like that may help. I don't know. But I also believe that human spirit is really strong, that it can never be squashed. So just as individuals, knowing that it gives us strength, knowing that my spirit, my soul is really strong. It can never be squashed. It gives you, if it fills you, and it gives you more strength and hope to live a bigger life, not just for me, for other people as well. Knowing that we have something to give. We all have something to give. Yeah, I don't know.
So Dydine, it's my second to last question, and that was lovely. Is there anything that you kind of wish I had asked, but I haven't yet asked?
Oh, Adam, you were so good at asking. I don't think you asked me pretty much everything.
Okay, then I've got a final question, believe it or not. And that is, Dydine, what do children and adults, for that matter, need to learn in order to reduce hateful acts? What do we need to learn?
What do we need to learn?
To ensure a better future.
I would say, especially here in this country, I feel like America is a powerful country, and the message America shares, it goes to the entire continent. It spreads really quickly. So how can you use that much power? And the power we have, how can you use it in making the world a better place? And I think the power really starts home. It starts what we're telling our children, the conversations the parents are having, because sometimes parents don't realize how much the kids take in. Because as young as they can be, they hear everything, and sometimes they interpret at school. So it's more of like, how are we teaching our children love and kindness, and so that they don't even know that much hatred can exist. Like, how are you preparing them at a very young age to grow up having compassion and being empathetic, having empathy towards everyone in the world, just knowing that, just teaching them the power of humanness, like the togetherness.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That we need each other.
We need each other. We do.
And you also have said in the past something that may relate to this last question, and I loved it because there's a Native American saying that we all have two wolves inside of ourselves, one evil, one good, and whoever we feed is who wins. And I've heard you say that even in Rwanda, there's that saying to some extent, same idea.
Yeah. So know that you have both and choose to feed the light in you, the more you feed it, it will fight the darkness inside. But we have both of those things inside of us. We just need to focus more on the positive side, so I guess before we finish, there was something you mentioned a long time ago, and I always bring it up in my talks. You said something about, I asked you about your work and the main thing that people are looking for, or what you have in mind when you have a client, when the client is coming in. And you mentioned something that was really special to me. And you said that all people want is to feel felt.
You like that one? Yeah, we want to feel
felt. Oh, I love that one. Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm so glad. Yeah. When people say, "Do you feel me, man?" Yeah, we want to feel felt.
Yes.
We want to feel felt.
So I really, really love that.
So glad that landed with you. And I feel very felt with you. And I'm going to bust out my first attempt at Murakoze Urakoze.
Oh, Murakoze-chan.
Is that thank you in your language?
Yes, Murakoze, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Dydine, for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your pain, your light, everything. You just showed up in your whole self.
And for your support, for your friendship. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Right back at you, sister. This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.